Does Oklahoma have a problem?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. The College Football Playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games, December 20 and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. He's Jay Smith, I'm John Williams, and the top story for the Oklahoma Sooners is the pursuit of one John Mateer, who reportedly is in town visiting the Oklahoma Sooners, Jay. But Pete Nakos of On3 mentioned that one Miami Hurricanes might be a problem in this recruitment.
I like that the national guy decided to toss that out there, especially because John Mateer did not enter with a no contact clause. And some people are like, do not contact me because I know where I'm going to go. So because John Mateer didn't throw that in there, the national guys had to point that out. And honestly, it's 100% obvious. We talked about that here on the show, a couple weeks ago when we were talking about potentially getting John Mateer, that if there was one school that was going to probably emerge as a problem, it was going to be Miami, specifically because they've already taken one Ben Arbuckle quarterback and they led him to a Heisman finalist. Why wouldn't they go after the second one? They would be idiots or idiotic to not even consider at least picking up the phone and calling and saying, hey, do we have a chance? And throwing whatever pitch you can at them. And so I know that over there on the Miami boards, the biggest thing they're saying is stretch this bad boy out for as long as possible. If they can stretch it out, they do think they have a chance. But I'm going to be honest, John, I don't think they do.
If they can get Mateer out of Norman, they've got a shot. If Mateer leaves Norman and hasn't signed to play for the Oklahoma Sooners in 2025, then anything's possible, really. Because like you said just the other day, Jay, you're not official until you're enrolled.
Yeah.
And really enrolled in sitting in classes. Like once the semester starts, then you're pretty much locked in at that point. Now, signing the financial agreement, I think kind of makes things a little bit more.
Because you can't sign more than one. So at that point, you'd have to re-enter the portal and then go. So technically, you've got through the whole 20 days. So the 29th, which is that's in 13 days. 13 days to re-enter the portal if you decide to. But once you sign that agreement, you can only sign one.
Yeah, and the fact that we're only hearing that Miami is the really only contender in this makes me feel good about Oklahoma's chances. At the same time, he just officially entered the portal. So there's no telling what kind of text messages, phone calls he and his people are getting right now to try and lure him somewhere else. We know that Missouri is in the hunt, and we know that they can play the NIL game. We know that a number of teams are going to be trying to get a veteran quarterback to extend their contending window. There's going to be a lot of places that are going to be looking for a guy like John Mateer to come be their quarterback. Obviously, the connections to Oklahoma are going to be important in this recruitment. At the same time, we've seen guys have connections and relationships at other schools in the past and it not matter a lick. So, I mean, even this cycle, right? We thought Reginald Virgil was, I wouldn't say a lock, but we thought it was a fairly sure thing that he'd end up at Oklahoma because he was excited about the Oklahoma offer. He's got the connection to Jaden Gibson, but it just didn't work together. Oklahoma didn't meet what he was looking for or vice versa. And now he's at Texas Tech. That's just the way it goes sometimes. And so much of it's going to come down to how the visit goes for Oklahoma. And if they can hit all the right buttons and move all the right needles. And I think all bets are off until he's actually officially a Sooner.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the biggest thing is don't leave Norman. So if he's in town tonight, which is what some of the reports have been going on the interwebs I've seen floating around. I don't know. Haven't seen anything actually by any of the main reporters, but supposedly he's in town tonight. If he's in town tonight, he's probably going to visit Wednesday. He's probably going to hang out Thursday. And if there is an announcement of a commitment, it's probably going to happen either Wednesday or Thursday if he's going to go to Oklahoma. Now, I don't want y'all to be all scared and worked up about us saying ifs and whats, because we're not going to give you definitives, even though I definitively believe that there's a 99.9% chance he comes to Oklahoma. That 0.1 chance does exist. So we want to keep it realistic for you all, because, I mean, as we lay it all out, John Mateer has Ben Arbuckle, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. His other quarterback coach, John Kisieski, who ended up coming to Oklahoma a couple of days ago. He was the one that's supposed to call the plays in the bowl game. Yes, I'm repeating exactly what I've told you all before, but that's the thing. These are key components to keep and consider. So the guy that that was his OC for 2 years, or a year and a half, we'd say, is here with the quarterback coach who's here, and he lives and is from Little Elm, Texas, up the street around the corner, which is 2.5 hours away. Every single sign points to, yeah, it makes sense to come to Oklahoma. So we're so heavy of a favorite that it's like, I want to bet against it because we're so heavy of a favorite. But no, I don't believe that there's a chance that he doesn't. I think that he's probably working on his commitment stuff now. He did actually just post, John, on Instagram, his goodbye to Washington State. So I saw that. I saw a couple of Sooners put that on their Instagram stories, which is a little interesting.
I'm gonna say I'm glad you're more confident than I am. I've been hurt too much, and I'll believe it when I see it. Do I feel more optimistic that it's going to happen for Oklahoma? Sure, I do. Probably 75-25.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to sit here and completely discount what Miami could potentially offer him. And again, it was a team that for much of this season was a college football playoff contender, and probably is going to have something similar of an offense to run with John Mateer. They're like, hey, this worked well for Cam Ward. Let's bring Mateer in. Let's run it back, basically.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's got the advantage. They get the first visit, but you need to make sure it's the only visit. So NIL guys, it's up to you. Venables, Arbuckle, Kusieski, Emmett Jones, Bill Bedenbaugh. Like, y'all got to lay out the vision. And you got to make sure that everybody knows, like, you're not leaving Norman, because we're going to make sure we have all our I's dotted, all our T's crossed, and have you 100% happy so that you don't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And again, we'll circle back to this too, but if it doesn't happen for Oklahoma, I don't think it's a disaster. I just think you go into 2025 with a lot more questions, because you haven't seen what Michael Hawkins can be with a healthy and productive offensive line, with a healthy and a productive wide receiver room. Does he have the talent? Yeah. Does he have the experience? No. And that's kind of where we're at quarterback.
Yeah, we got to wait and see. It's going to be 100% a wait and see situation with our guy, Michael Hawkins. I do think that he'll be ready under Arbuckle. I think he's probably training with them now to learn the system, get everything going. But it always is better to go in with the guy that's ran the system for a couple of years rather than a guy that's learning it for the first time. And it's nothing against Michael Hawkins. It doesn't mean that he can't learn it very quickly. Mateer will be able to start teaching the wide receiver stuff. He'll be able to teach them everything. He'll teach running back. So instead of everybody learning at the same time, the quarterback is the one physically teaching, which will help with accelerating everybody on the team. Heck, that will help accelerate Hawkins. He'll be able to see where he's looking at and be like, okay, that's stuff that I need to adjust to be able to go for. So you never know. He could learn from him and then in spring take over. That's how good he could possibly be. I'm not saying it will happen. Not saying that it won't. My point is, it's always a possibility that Michael Hawkins can be out there competing.
And again, this is an important domino that needs to fall for the Oklahoma Sooners so that you know where to go with your wide receiver recruitments, and do you need to continue to pursue offensive linemen as well. We'll have more to say about the transfer portal coming up over the next couple of segments. One Oklahoma defensive lineman entered the portal, and a former 5-star target for the Oklahoma Sooners entered the portal. Let's discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place those live bets on the NFL. So if you're looking at games for the weekend, those Buccaneers are still looking nice and pretty with that 3.5 going up against, well, see, he's got the Cowboys, but you got the Dolphins as well. The 49ers are a 1.5 point dog in that game, which is interesting. They would be dogs. So if you got a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check out the latest stats, if you play by play, so much more, you can do that in the FanDuel app. So go to FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. This FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And then you've got Prize Picks. Make holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks. The best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Best thing about it, Prize Picks is available in multiple states, including California, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Florida, and more than 30 right now. And so you can join today. They've got their holiday season deal going on. They're giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas is what they call it. And so if you look at some of the picks out there, I'm looking at Detroit. You got some interesting stuff on the ice. They've got some hockey stuff going on today. Like Dylan Larkin, 20 and a quarter time on ice. You can pick that more or less. So check them out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after playing your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Jay, one of my favorite players in the 2023 recruiting class entered the transfer portal. That's one Ashton Champ Sanders, a dude that I think has got a really good get off. He's quick. He's athletic. Just kind of got lost in the shuffle as Oklahoma built its defensive line rotation with guys like Dejon Terry and Jaden Jackson and David Stone and Dominic Williams over the last year and a half.
Yeah, he was one of my favorites. He just posted a tweet. David Stone posted a tweet that he considered him the meanest and one of the most mentally and physically fit guys, and he's sad to see him go. And same thing Champ Sanders quote tweeted it and said, fat boys for life or whatnot. So you could tell that the guys are going to miss him. Look, I enjoyed seeing Champ Sanders come into class in 23. He had a picture in high school, and I'll never forget it. He was standing at the 1 yard line, and someone took the picture, and he had put a caption on it that if you want to get this, you've got to go through me. And so he was sitting there standing pat at the 1 saying he wants the smoke and he does not want to let anybody get into his territory. You got to go through him to get it. We need dudes more so with that mentality. Unfortunately, the one thing about Champ Sanders that I like and unfortunately do not like is that he's only about 200 and about 95 pounds. He's going to need to get himself up to about 330. I don't know if his frame can take it, but he's getting up to about 320. But 315 at the minimum if he really wants to be as effective in the SEC. Now, granted, he goes out there and play in the Big Ten, possibly in the Pac-12 or in the Big 12. He could be super impactful at that size because he's still got that quickness with his hands. So, gonna miss Champ Sanders. He was one of the players, just like you. I was really excited about him joining the team.
He was a late riser. I remember that last semester for him as a senior, he didn't really have great offers up until his senior season. And then they just started rolling in. All these Power 4 SEC Big Ten offers started coming in, and he ended up choosing Oklahoma. So yeah, Ashton Sanders, friend of the show, had been on the show before joining the Oklahoma Sooners in the 2023 offseason. Now, another big name kind of hit the portal, and this is going to be a fascinating one to follow. Zachariah Branch, the former 5-star wide receiver that was he was a target of the Sooners during the Lincoln Riley era. Oklahoma was his first offer back in 2020. He hails from Bishop Gorman High School. That is the same high school that produced DeMarco Murray. Yeah. So as much as Zachariah Branch was a Lincoln Riley prospect, a guy that he was recruiting, ended up following Lincoln Riley to USC, let's not completely poo-poo the idea that DeMarco Murray might not have some relationship there that could potentially sway Oklahoma, or at least give them an opportunity to get in the room. Now, He's been productive in 2 seasons at USC. In year 2, the offense at USC was not as good as it was in year 1 when Zachariah Branch was a true freshman in 2023. So what do you think about Zachariah Branch there, Jay?
I mean, I saw like the kind of the Twitter spat that you had this evening where people were kind of telling you that they watched him play and he sucks. And I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, what? You think Zachariah Branch sucks? But whatever. I mean, I get it. USC fans don't like the guy. I mean, you ask Sooner fans, they're losing their minds about the 4 guys that basically hit the portal for us. So they'll tell you probably the same thing, that they all suck. I don't know. But I do think that he has a opportunity to be super impactful. Coming in as a true freshman, dude's a monster, especially in the return game. Mm-hmm. He's one that you're like, oh, okay, he's going to be something. And like you said, last season, this past season, the offense just did not sputter. It sputtered, and it just did not produce anything. So Zachariah Branch was not able to really put up the numbers you would have expected because he didn't have a quarterback that could get him the ball where he needed to get it. Now, I would love for Oklahoma to rise and emerge as a threat to whomever he ends up at. Unfortunately, he put in a do not contact tag in his transfer portal paperwork. So don't call us, we'll call you type scenario. I'm curious to who he is calling. Is he going to end up with Malik Brown? Is he going to go to Oregon, Arizona State? Could he have put that in there so that he can call the schools he wants to talk to and see who wants to give him the highest bid? It's most likely what it's going to be. I totally understand it. He's a talent that commands that type of money. Why not go get it?
Yeah, and I get, he's not the biggest wide receiver. He's only 5'10", 5'11". At the same time, he's a guy that just has this innate ability to create after the catch. He led the Big Ten in yards after the catch per reception. He was 8th in the nation in yards after catch per reception. So the guy can create on his own. You don't have to throw him jump balls. He can get open. He can win in one-on-one situations. And I had somebody ask me, okay, what about off the line of scrimmage? Is he going to get bodied? Well, if you're playing him right on the line of scrimmage and you're not using motion and you're not giving him an opportunity to have some space to create, then maybe you're not doing what you need to do as an offensive coordinator to help your wide receivers out a little bit. Will he end up at Oklahoma? Probably not. But I think it's something they need to consider because you need to try and find as many playmakers as you possibly can.
Yes.
What he does as a wide receiver is one thing. What he does as a return man, that is another thing that makes him so valuable. And so who knows where this will end up? He's going to have a lot of people trying to contact him, or at least trying to lay some groundwork like, hey, call us. Just send out that text. Hey, give me a ring, sort of.
Hey, big hit.
Or, shooting it to the brother, Zion, letting him make the decision or make the calls or whatever. But everybody in the country is going to want, or not everybody, but a lot of the country is going to want to try and find a way to get Zachariah Branch on their squad.
Yeah, no, he's one player that everybody wants to get their hands on. If you can get your hands on a player of the caliber of Zachariah Branch, you go after it. Because like you said, not only his wide receiver skills, his special teams capabilities changes a lot. It makes it to where teams have to be strategic about it where they kick the ball. Mm-hmm. Don't kick it to that dude. Kick it out of the end zone. Don't punt his direction. Punt it out of bounds. And if you start trying to really target out of bounds punting, what happens? You start getting shanks. You start getting them cut shorter than where you want it to go. So it's like having a good corner that shuts down one side of the field because nobody wants to throw it there. That was the best part of like a Deion Sanders back in his day. And honestly, Travis Hunter started doing that a little bit for Colorado. You didn't want to throw that side of the field because you didn't know where that dude was going to randomly show up at. And especially that was definitely what Deion Sanders did. Zachariah Branch gives you that similar capabilities when it comes to the return game. You don't want to kick it directly to him because if he catches it, there's a very good chance he's going to return that bad boy.
Yeah, a lot of transfer portal stuff happening. The Oklahoma Sooners still pursuing wide receivers. We'll see which direction they go on that front. Still a lot of buzz about Dron Bradley, the former Texas Tech and Boston College wide receiver connected to Emmett Jones. Hopefully they can get that size in Norman and on the outside. But a former Sooner found a new home. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. It's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins December 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into their first matchup with SMU battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay, Nick Anderson's got a new home. Going to the Bayou with Bauer Sharp. LSU Tigers must have saw what Garrett Nussmeier was capable of and decided, you know what, I'll go play with that.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of weird. The weird thing I thought about all of that is that everybody felt the need to really keep posting over and over that not only he's gone to LSU, but he's officially signed with them immediately as well. And it's like, I haven't seen that for any other players out there, but I totally get it. Nick Anderson is a force when healthy that could be, very beneficial to what LSU is doing. Adding him with Bauer Sharp, they'll be able to be a 1-2 combo since LSU lost a whole bunch of wide receivers in the portal too. So, I mean, happy for him. I'm glad he's going to be there. We'll see him at the end of the season, which I'm pretty excited. He'll come here last game of the year. Hopefully he's healthy, and then boom, we can remind him of why he should have stayed here at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think there are going to be some guys that are going to want to try and make some noise in that game for the Sooners. What do you think about just the fact that, okay, you've seen so many Oklahoma Sooners depart, and they're landing at SEC schools. They're landing, in Power 4 situations.
Tells you that players weren't bad. It's just the big thing is being healthy. And especially Bauer Sharp going to LSU was not a surprise to me. He's going back home. He was from Louisiana. That's where he came from when we brought him up into the SEC initially. And they saw him as like, no, he's got the size and ability, and he's athletic as heck. You just don't want him to be like the focal point doing everything, while at the same time understanding year 2 in a P4, strength and conditioning program and just setup could completely refine his game to where he's a lot better. Nick came in, he's 6'4", 220, and he's a nice size wide receiver that should have been getting a lot more attention before. But of course, the unfortunate thing was he couldn't stay healthy. Healthy his freshman year. He was injured his freshman year, played last year as a redshirt freshman, and then got hurt as this season was going on. So you hope that he gets out there and gets healthy, but he's going to be something good. He's going to be a really special wide receiver once he's healthy, because he's a really good route runner, and Nick's a very hard worker. So we'll see. I'm just excited to be able to see him. And I do believe, though, we'll bring in some players, though, that I'll be able to match up.
Oh, for sure. And then the other one that found a new home was Eugene Brooks. BJ Brooks is going back out west to UCLA.
Nice. I missed that one. That's actually really good. I figured he was going to end up going back home. UCLA is a fantastic spot. Former Sooner and Tennessee Vol and Ole Miss Rebel Key Lawrence is actually at UCLA as well. So that's actually pretty interesting to see that you got both those guys heading that way. But it made sense for Eugene Brooks to go home and play for the school close to him. He was from Sierra Canyon, and that's actually pretty awesome.
Looking at portal needs, Jay, what do you think is still the biggest need for Oklahoma?
Wide receiver. We need to fill that room up. If we get a quarterback, which if we get one in the next couple of days, I assume that we'll probably get a couple of we'll get some wide receivers probably commit right afterwards if that happens within the next 2 days. But 100% wide receiver. We need a lot more wide receivers right now. We need to refill that room, restock it. I know that Jaden Gibson's going to come back, but it's going to take him about 8 months to get to that exact time period where he's healthy again. So I expect that injury to hold him off at least until probably spring game, possibly summer. But then you'll have Deion Burks, who's looking to try to play here in the bowl game, and then all the young guys around him. But you need a couple more veterans to mix in with the young players. That way the young players aren't trying to carry the weight of the team. Even though they learned a lot. They were forged a lot in fire this past season. But I think wide receiver is number one for me. What position you think is tops?
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver is the one that stands out the most. I'd still like to see them add an impactful tight end. unless they just feel like, hey, next year, Davin Mitchell, he's going to be ready to roll. He's going to be, or Caden Helms, that those guys are going to be ready to take up the tight end mantle. You haven't heard them really connected to many tight ends. They had the offer to the Tulsa tight end, but that didn't go that direction. He ended up going to Houston, actually. So it's odd where Oklahoma's at in the tight end market, but if they just don't feel like that there's one out there that's more impactful than the guys that they've got in house, then by all means, let the guys in house develop and continue to work with those guys and see where they can go. But yeah, wide receiver, I still feel like you need maybe 2 guys with production to add to the roster. I like the guys that they've got in 2020, in the 2024 class and the 2025 class. You just want to have a little bit more security, right? Because you saw what it looked like when you had no experience at wide receiver, and it was rough, man. It was just absolutely rough. Now, you might have a dude in that 2025 class, like an Elijah Thomas, that says, no, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's go play ball. Or a guy like Zion Kearney or Zion Raggins, maybe they're a little bit more prepared this next go round. You know, that first swim through the SEC, that was not smooth sailing for anybody on the offensive side of the ball. So it's hard to make any real judgments about their ability or their trajectory. There's still a lot of potential for those guys. So we'll see. But I think if you want to have some security and feel good about it, adding 2 guys to just make sure you have enough production and experience at wide receiver, I think is going to benefit you. Because I feel good about slot. If you want to say Deion Burks is still your slot wide receiver and Jacob Jordan behind him, I feel good there. You got to find some guys to play on the outside. Is there a spot on the roster you feel like, hey, we're good, we don't need to add anybody?
Honestly, I think linebacker is the one you really don't need to add anybody in. We've got a long list of dudes that even when they played in the little bit of experience they had, they looked good. And they're looking like they developed. I think the linebacker room is probably the most solid out of it. Right behind that is safety. Those are the 2 rooms, and I'm like, yeah, we probably don't need anybody else additionally. And if I go with a third, running back room. I think with X-Rob, Taylor Tatum, and the fact that we still got Barnes, both Sawchucks back there, makes me say, yeah, I think that running back room is going to be fine. Well, it just depends if everybody sticks, which I kind of have a feeling it will. Or we'll find out that guys decide to hit the portal after the bowl game. And then at that point, makes sense. Probably want to get in the bowl game, get a little bit more tape, and then boom, hit the portal and see what's going on. So that gives them like 2 days to at least put their information in. You don't have to commit anywhere until before school starts, but you need to have your name in the portal before the 29th. I think that those 3 rooms are probably the more solid ones right now. We may need to grab one more edge just to have some additional experience down there on the line, and probably 1, if not 2 big guys in the middle, just so you have some good rotational pieces, because you don't want your guys in there having 800 snaps in the season. You want to keep them around 300, maybe 4, and you're going to rotate a lot of those young ones in. But I think, if anything, those are probably the 3 positions I say, nah, you don't need nobody.
Yeah, so much of what happens at defensive tackle is going to depend on what Dominic Williams decides to do.
It's true.
He was non-committal when he spoke with the media earlier this week. If he decides to come back, I think you're good to go with Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson and Grayson Halton as your top 3. David Stone coming in behind that, and Trent Wilson. I think you can feel pretty good about it. Marcus Strong is still on the roster, and when he played, he showed some really, really good things as a guy that can be a 3-deep defensive lineman for you. I think running back, I think you're right, especially as you bring in Torrey Blaylock, another really explosive kid to add to the running back room. I think you're pretty well set there. Cornerback, I could see them going and trying to add some more depth there because, again, like we talked about at wide receiver with Jaden Gibson, you're not sure what the future looks like with Gentry Williams. At this point, you expect him to be back, but how healthy is he going to be able to be, and how healthy will he stay? So that's kind of where I'm leaning. Is cornerback still is a need, but I'm good at linebacker. I'm good at safety. I'm good at defensive tackle, to be fair. And then, yeah, if you can add to me an impactful edge rusher, somebody who's got some production to his name, then by all means do it. If you're just kind of finding a depth piece, I wouldn't sweat that too much, because I think you got some good depth pieces on the roster, unless you just want to throw some more competition at the young guys. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So go subscribe. Go follow us over on those social media accounts. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. Ba, 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 ba.